2008 would be a significant year for Cena, not always in the best way. Yes, he won the Rumble for the first time in his career and prematurely cashed in that WrestleMania match early, yes, for a world title shot against Randall Keith Orton, who was a dominant WWE champion at the time. Because he got DQ'd, the title shot was gone. But he managed to get right back into the picture, leading to a triple threat match for the WWE title at WrestleMania 24 in Orlando between Cena, Randy Orton, and Triple H. And though he had the big win at the Rumble, he wouldn't follow it up at Mania. Cena ended up taking the pinfall from Randy Orton, his first loss at a WrestleMania. Yeah, sorry, John, no Undertaker streak for you. WWE fans were kind of conditioned to the idea of Cena quickly coming back from adversity and regaining world titles, but that really wasn't the case in 2008. The WWE title picture ended up being dominated by Orton, Triple H, Edge, and Jeff Hardy instead. He was truly in the mix with other people having the world title. He would be in a fatal four-way elimination match at the Backlash event, but he'd be the second of four superstars eliminated. 2008 was also a very odd and maybe uncomfortable year for John Cena outside of the ring. There was reports of him having some type of relationship with fellow WWE superstar Mickie James. Now, Mickie James also was at one point engaged to fellow WWE wrestler Kenny Dystra, so this was confusing, and Cena himself had a relationship with a longtime partner he knew since high school outside of the wrestling business. The story goes from Dykstra himself, when he found out about the relationship between James and Cena, he ended their engagement. Now, on-screen, WWE decided to give it a shot by having Cena and Mickie James in an on-screen pairing as a couple. But the sparks they had maybe off-screen weren't the same on-screen, and it simply wasn't something that was going to keep going on. In the years that have passed, Dykstra addressed the controversy, saying it negatively impacted his career, but it didn't really deride anything for John Cena. On-screen, things appeared to be slowing down for the leader of the C Nation, but he had a renewed feud with an old foe in the braggadocious Texan, JBL. They would have a series of matches over several pay-per-view events, and shockingly enough, JBL won their last match, walked out of the rivalry, I guess at the end, as the victor of it all, something that almost never really happened for Cena around this time. It's also worth noting, in that same summer, he challenged Triple H at the Night of Champions event for the WWE Championship, and came up short. Another big loss. The summer of 2008 continued to be a yo-yo, up and down, some good, some bad. He would be paired with another one of those guys he worked hard with in OVW, Batista. Yeah, they would become World Tag Team Champions. Yes, they're Tag Team Champions, but they can't get along. After they defeated Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase for the titles, but would drop the titles back to the former champions the following week to set up a big match at SummerSlam. Cena would go into Indianapolis at the Conseco Fieldhouse to take on his generational rival and go the distance at 14 minutes, but come up short. And also leave injured with a herniated disc in his neck. And this is something that Batista would mock years later in another rivalry between the two foes. You would think that the back-to-back injuries that he suffered within a year would be enough for Cena to take an extended hiatus, simply really rest. But no, Cena would undergo serious neck surgery with a titanium fusion, and a few hours after that surgery, after pushing the boundaries once again, he visited a WWE locker room when a doctor thought he was just going to be resting in his hotel. Yes, he was backstage acting like everything was just cool with a simple bandage on his neck. Yeah, he's just a different level person when it comes to fighting back from injuries. It's not something he does to create an image. It's just who he is, said Triple H in an official YouTube video from WWE documenting the entire Against All Odds scenario. And you can call John Cena Dennis Rodman because he was great at rebounding, as it was announced that Chris Jericho was going to face him in the 2008 Survivor Series for the newly won World Heavyweight Championship. And he would do it not too far away from where he grew up, in Boston's TD Garden. Cena would win the world title, number 4 out of 16, and this time it was a title he had yet to win. the World Heavyweight Championship. The hometown crowd loved their man Cena capturing the big gold belt, but the reviews online were modest. TGR Wrestling critiqued it by saying Jericho working on the neck for a majority of the match was the right strategy for him, but I don't think anybody believed Jericho was going to win. It was an obvious title win for Cena, one of the most obvious title wins there's ever been. Cena would plow through Jericho once more in a rematch at Armageddon. He would run it back with JBL at the Royal Rumble, and he was victorious there as well. He was set to enter the Elimination Chamber once more and defend the WWE Championship. Kofi Kingston, who was one of the participants, was scheduled for the match, only to be attacked by the devious Edge, who lost the WWE title in the other Elimination Chamber match that same night. This really shook things up for Cena, and it's one of the biggest moments of brilliance. Edge would lock himself in the pod and stay inside the World Heavyweight Championship match, scheming and conniving his way into the big gold belt from John Cena once again. Maybe it would have served WWE to give us an Edge versus John Cena singles match for the title at WrestleMania, but for some odd reason, they added the Big Show to the mix. The match saw a thrilling moment where Cena got Big Show and Edge up on his shoulders for a massive slam. At Mania 25 in Texas, Cena would regain the World Heavyweight title, only to drop it a month later back to Edge. The feud following WrestleMania, though, was kind of a reminder of why Edge and Cena had the real magic, and it wasn't nearly as compelling to see him in there with the Big Show. Edge cut one of the best promos of his career when he told Cena how much he hated him and everything he stood for. He highlighted how much both of them stretched each other to their limits over the years, so much that it shortened both of their careers. The two would face each other in a last man standing match at Backlash, where Edge got the definitive end of their rivalry by defeating John Cena, regaining the World Heavyweight title, but doing so with the aid of the Big Show, who chokeslammed John Cena through a spotlight. It was again a rare instance of a superstar actually getting an edge, for lack of a better term here, against John Cena at the end of a feud. So of course WWE had to give Cena his win back by beating Edge on an episode of Raw the following year. Either way, the loss happened as a result of the Big Show interfering, and Super Cena wasn't gonna let that happen. So he quickly disposed of the world's largest athlete at 2 consecutive pay-per-view events. It wouldn't be long before he was back in the world title hunt, this time once again for the WWE Championship. Cena was back in the mix, facing Triple H and Randy Orton for the vacant WWE Championship in a WrestleMania 24 rematch, this time on Raw. And the outcome remained the same, with Cena getting pinned by that dastardly Randy Orton. This sent Cena on another snake chase for the championship title. With Cena pumping up his Reeboks and following a slithering Randy Orton with the title into SummerSlam, even the stipulation of a countout or a DQ leading to Randy Orton losing the title managed to get the better of John Cena. Now, what you may not understand here in retrospect, hearing this now, is this is a feud that some fans were getting pretty sick and tired of. John Cena and Randy Orton doing that dance again. To put it into perspective, they've had 22 televised singles matches against each other, including their clash back in the day at Ohio Valley Wrestling as young rookies. And out of those 22 matches, 5 of them occurred between August to December 2009. The next 3 saw different stipulations, and they all had title changes going back and forth with the belt. The first time the title flip-flopped was at Breaking Point, with Cena winning the WWE Championship in an I Quit match. Weeks later, Orton would get the title back at Hell in a Cell. In a match that was supposed to conclude their rivalry, Cena beat Orton in a 60-minute Iron Man match to win the title back once more. 4 matches in 2 months for the title changes weren't enough. WWE was generous to give us another heaping dose of Cena and Orton for good measure. This time, it was a match to determine the Superstar of the Year, and Cena won that as well. And you can probably get the idea as to why Cena was a full-blown, polarizing figure within wrestling to end that decade. To his detractors, there were a few major arguments as to why the sentiment against Cena had been five-knuckle shuffling into a different feeling. For one, he was crushing a lot of fan favorites, some people that maybe had a little bit more of an edge than he did, and pretty easily doing it, and his matches followed a fairly similar playbook. It ended with Cena hitting the FU, and now the attitude adjustment to pick up the victory from the jaws of defeat. Second, there was criticism of his limited in-ring ability and the 5 moves of doom. A bunch of people on a message board heard the word 5 moves of doom and, made that into a thing that isn't real. To the critics, mostly the older demographic of WWE, it felt like the biggest guy in the industry was turning into a toy marketed to children, which also marked WWE's aggressive change in the direction of catering to younger audiences and families with the TV PG rating. Was WWE right to continue pushing him as the babyface when he brought in so many fans, but maybe upset this minority that was quite vocal on the internet? It depends on who you ask. John Cena was the millennial Hulk Hogan of WWE. His ties to meaningful organizations like Make-A-Wish Foundation gave him a certain sentimental place with a lot of people. Plus, he moved a ton of merch, so turning on him would be turning on a golden goose that was a real moneymaker for WWE and meant a lot to a majority of casual wrestling fans who, by the way, are still wrestling fans. If you were to ask somebody watching WWE during Cena's run at the top, they'd probably tell you that a heel turn would have helped him turn into an even greater superstar. They used Roman Reigns as an example of just how much bigger an organic turn can make someone. There were, at one point, plans for a supervillain Cena, but we're still a couple of years away from that. Let's put a pin in that topic. We'll get to it. As 2010 began, John Cena was nearly touching half a decade as the guy of WWE. While he was still a few years away from outlasting someone like Hogan at the top of the card, he had surpassed the combined tenures of Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, both of whom were the face of the company during the peak years between 1998 and 2002. He was the Ruthless Aggression era. And in 2010, he attempted to win the Royal Rumble for the second time in his career, but ended up being the runner-up to none other than Edge. But don't worry, John Cena went into the chamber, the Elimination Chamber, in February and won the WWE Championship again, only to be faced with another trauma that he faced 4 years earlier. In 2006, Cena won his first chamber match, and he was greeted by Mr. McMahon, who set up Edge, cashing in that first Money in the Bank briefcase. And in 2010, well, he really aggravated McMahon again for a storyline, so the boss used his Vince in the Bank power to have Batista swoop in and get an easy WWE title victory? Batista? What? This was when Batista was having the best character run of his career, just going off and being quite edgy at a time when people thought WWE wasn't going to be edgy, and he was doing it while he was making a WWE exit. It's a real shame that he left the WWE when he did, because he was hitting his prime in terms of a refined heelish character, a way we hadn't seen him do in the 8 years prior. The feud between Batista and Cena would revolve around their parallel rise to the top in 2005, years earlier, when both of them became world champions on the same night at WrestleMania. But this year's WrestleMania would be different, two of them playing two very different characters under very different circumstances. It was all about Batista's frustrations and jealousy over not being chosen as a golden boy. And unsurprisingly, Cena won the WWE Championship back at WrestleMania 26 in Arizona, the same night that we saw the end of Shawn Michaels' career. That's right, Cena got that win back on Batista. They had a last man standing match at Extreme Rules too, with Cena completing a 3-0 rout of Batista by making him say, "I quit." A night later, Batista would be saying that again, this time shockingly exiting WWE, but at least he had a good feud to go out on. In his next storyline, people have talked about this for nearly a decade and a half, an example of how John Cena reportedly, allegedly, and cannot be confirmed to have been using his clout to change the story he was performing in with a questionable twist. He was the most powerful superstar in the pro wrestling industry by a wide mile. Face of the company, their biggest box office draw, their biggest merchandise mover, the #1 hero. That also made him a significant target. When he said backstage he had a lot more sway, and many fans consider the summer of 2010 to be an example of that. Some claiming he misused his power, but they can't confirm it. For context, a storyline was brewing with a group of rookies that interrupted a match between John Cena, CM Punk at the closure of a Monday Night Raw. Young rookies from the NXT game show of the time, not the NXT developmental brand, would show up and ravage the ring. CM Punk and mostly Cena taking a whole lot of damage from this new group that would be known as the Nexus. And they would continue to do this on WWE for a significant period of time. Their debut was so disruptive that future world champion Daniel Bryan, who debuted with the Nexus, got fired because he choked an announcer, Justin Roberts, with a tie, and that upset some sponsors, reportedly. Cena found himself cornered on all sides. His WWE title matches and other big bouts kept ending in him in defeat because of the Nexus. So where is this going wrong? Cena had enough of these rookies shaking everything up, and he formed an alliance, a team comprising of Edge, Chris Jericho, R-Truth, John Morrison, and a very physically limited Bret Hart. This Team WWE versus Team Nexus showdown would main event that year's SummerSlam, and it was a very interesting, huge match to see this very upstart group get featured with Cena in the closing moments of a major pay-per-view. The final member of Team WWE was someone who was with Nexus in their debut. To this day, it has been widely agreed that the 7-on-7 elimination match at SummerSlam should have ended with Wade Barrett and his side, the Nexus, defeating John Cena in some way, letting this new group of upstarts have their moment over established names in WWE. Barrett was the leader of the team, and it would have done wonders to shoot his career and his team to the moon as a truly powerful force. By all accounts, many people seem like the direction was there, but in the years since, it has been assumed widely that Cena, or maybe someone in his camp, used political power backstage to lobby for their team to win the match instead. It did nothing to help Cena or his team, and it only served as a momentum killer in the eyes of some for the Nexus, all of whom were very young, new superstars trying to make a name for themselves collectively. Cena has denied meddling with the booking, but not everyone is convinced about that. This is also something that got rolling online, and when people believe something online, they really jump into widespread speculation being treated as fact. There's no proof that it actually happened. We don't really know that Wade Barrett would have been the next big star if he won the match for his team at SummerSlam, and it's not hard to see why Barrett and everyone involved may have been disappointed by the decision. He would unfortunately face more disappointments in his feud with Cena as it continued on. Barrett faced Cena at the Hell in a Cell event that year, in a match stipulating that if Cena lost, he would have to join the Nexus. Against his will, he joined the Black and Yellow Brigade, and the story just tanked from there. He had a brief run with David Otunga as tag team champions, completing the trifecta of the most random partners to win tag team titles together. Otunga joined the illustrious list of stars to win tag team titles with Cena, including Shawn Michaels and Batista. Cena spent the rest of the year in the storyline with the Nexus, and when a WWE title match between Randy Orton and Wade Barrett was set for Survivor Series, Cena was made the special guest referee, with the stipulation that if Barrett didn't win the title, Cena would be fired from the WWE. And he got fired after Randy Orton won the match and gave a farewell speech to WWE fans. If Mark Henry had the best fake retirement of all time, this one may be one of the worst. He literally came back the same night to cost Wade Barrett the WWE title rematch, after which The Miz cashed in to become the WWE champion. It was truly a shocking title change, but certainly a messy one at that. Cena then started invading Monday Night Raw with the promise of taking down the Nexus for good. Wade Barrett was somehow the only one with authority to rehire Cena, and he did just that on the condition that he face off in a chairs match. Super Cena would crush Barrett, literally in Houston at the Tables, Ladders, and Chairs pay-per-view event, literally crushing him by simply yanking down dozens of steel chairs that were arranged in a specific entrance for the very violent, hardcore-themed show. Yes, Cena literally buried Barrett to end the entire story for good. It was also the best match in their feud, so there's something. But there was clearly bigger things cooking for the man from Massachusetts. At the 2011 Royal Rumble, he took out multiple members of what is now known as the New Nexus, led by this disruptive fellow named CM Punk. The Miz, who is still WWE Champion and getting booed out of every building for it, took Cena out to tease their match in a main event for WrestleMania 27. The Miz, a lifelong wrestling fan who jumped into WWE with success following MTV's reality TV shows, was never really respected by a majority of wrestling fans, and even some people in the locker room. So it was a cultural changing of the guard, with Cena being someone to protect the business from an outlier and an villainous champion from outside the true ranks of the business, to build up to a huge title clash in Atlanta for that year's Mania. Cena was eliminated from the Rumble match, which makes the Mania main events, but this was done by The Miz, who was not advertised for the 30-man match. But as many of you know, this entire program was really just to set up a bigger match with someone else. The Rock was announced as a special guest host for WrestleMania 27, making an unexpected return after a long 7-year absence. If The Rock was only going to return to WWE to face one person in a rare match, it had to be Cena at this time, right? Meanwhile, Cena had some risky Mizness before Mania. Cena managed to make another piece of historic history on the road to Mania, the Tag Team Championships with The Miz. Yeah, they did that again. And why was it so historic? This would end up being one of the shortest reigns in the title's history, after Justin Gabriel and Heath Slater just lost them and invoked their rematch clause. Miz attacked him, and somehow that moment was supposed to get people excited about their match at Mania 27. It was all something in the shadow of The Rock being a part of the show. Cena had been vocal about his bid about The Rock's return with WWE and seemed to have some real resistance and resentment towards it. He publicly stated his disapproval of the fact that The Rock just left wrestling to pursue Hollywood. If you're wondering about the irony of Cena feeling that way, he has since stated he was wrong in making those comments and took full ownership of it. Tensions rose, and Cena and Rock finally came face to face on Monday Night Raw before WrestleMania 27. And you would think that WWE would make a little bit more effort in concealing the fact that The Miz was just in the main event with these two other big figures, but they weren't exactly subtle about that. Cena hit an attitude adjustment on The Rock, and the Great One repaid him a few days later, directly costing him a main event WrestleMania match and helping a concussed Miz in Atlanta retain his WWE Championship in a pretty messy main event for the title. The next night on Monday Night Raw, Cena and The Rock decided to take action and put pen to paper, or at least shake hands on an upcoming mega match that everyone wanted, and they would have to wait an entire year to see it at WrestleMania 28 in Miami, Florida. This was something that had never happened before, and it's never happened since, and was billed as a once-in-a-lifetime dream match. Though they would have more than one bout, the Rock versus Cena billing truly added fuel to WWE's tank for an entire wrestling season, with anticipation building to the stadium-packing Millennials versus Gen X charisma battle for the ages. With a WrestleMania main event already penciled in, Cena would begin one of the more impressive years that he would have at the top of WWE. He wasn't the champion for a long time, but 3 more reigns would be added to that 16 count. Cena would quickly resume a feud with The Miz, and John Morrison would get involved in the mix as well. Morrison, being The Miz's former tag team partner, added a whole new element. Then you put it all in a steel cage, and well, you got something pretty special in Tampa, Florida at the Extreme Rules pay-per-view that year. And it would see valiant John Cena once again become WWE champion. But something else that John Cena would say after the match was a lot more interesting in retrospect, as he would reveal to the Florida crowd John freaking Cena would be the first person in the world to break the news by most standards that the American military had, quote, caught and compromised to a permanent end Osama bin Laden. Yes, it was surreal to say the least. In the background, the wheels in WWE were spinning in a different direction, a place they hadn't gone. One man who was set to disrupt the entire industry and maybe even John Cena's career. A man called CM Punk. Cena would have 2 more title defenses and face R-Truth at the Capital Punishment pay-per-view and defend the world title successfully. But Punk awaited, emerging as the #1 contender for the WWE Championship after an incredible week that saw him pin John Cena, Rey Mysterio, and Alberto Del Rio. But the circumstances that Punk had on his side entering into this world title match were quite interesting and risky for WWE as a whole, as he let it be known that his WWE contract would be expiring on July 17th. Same day he would have his title match against John Cena at Money in the Bank, and it was in CM Punk's hometown of Chicago. If you were in the Cena Sucks crowd, CM Punk was likely your guy, even though the company kind of labeled him a cult leader of sorts. He would shed the new Nexus and he would sort of become a counterculture babyface hero heading up against John Cena, who was seen as the company man at Money in the Bank. And walking into Chicago, you got the real feeling that CM Punk had all of the advantage here. He had 2 Money in the Bank wins, 2 successful cash-ins, and subsequent world title reigns, but he was never seen as the guy like John Cena was. 2 weeks before becoming the #1 contender, CM Punk cost John Cena a match against R-Truth, where Cena was sent crashing through a table. While sitting there in the wreckage, CM Punk would cut the promo, the pipe bomb promo. Up to this point, we had seen some of Cena's rivals like Edge express their dislike for him and his standing within the company and maybe what he stood for as a whole in the wrestling industry. But CM Punk dived into it in a way that nobody normally would, especially in WWE's PG environment. It wasn't the nature of his language per se, but the fact that he broke the 4th wall, telling Cena that while he didn't dislike him personally, he despised him professionally and what he represented. It was the first time maybe that Cena was publicly acknowledged as the company's golden boy in such a negative way. All of the goodness and wholesomeness he represented was sort of tainted leading into this big powder keg of a match. There's not much that we can say about the pipe bomb that hasn't already been said, but what it achieved was making CM Punk a much bigger star, and it also gave John Cena the most interesting rivalry he had in years. It led to an exhilarating all-time classic at Money in the Bank, where CM Punk's hometown advantage truly came to a roaring, audible presence. This was also one of the best reviewed matches of John Cena's WWE career. Despite him losing the title, it earned the rare and prestigious 5-star match rating from Big Papa Dave Meltzer. Vince McMahon, Mr. McMahon, was left scrambling, calling on Alberto Del Rio to run down to the ring and cash in his newly won briefcase just so CM Punk couldn't exit the WWE with the WWE Championship. John Cena lost the title, but CM Punk did it. In fact, walking out with the WWE Championship, but him supposedly gone, meant the title was vacated, a tournament was held to crown a new interim champion. Rey Mysterio won the tournament and had another wholesome world championship win, but his previous 2 reigns, it ended all too abruptly, at least the first 2 world reigns for Rey Mysterio, in case John Cena cashed in his Cena in the Bank contract and invoked his rematch clause the same night that Mysterio won. How WWE felt that a good guy doing something like that was beyond our comprehension, because John Cena toppled a beloved babyface in Mysterio to win the title again. It led to CM Punk's truly rebellious return, and he picked up right where he left off with John Cena at the top of the card, both having claims to the WWE Championship that were viewed as legitimate, setting up a unification match at that year's SummerSlam with Triple H as the special guest referee. CM Punk and John Cena both had issues with Triple H. It would be a controversial win for CM Punk at SummerSlam, as Cena's foot was visibly under the bottom rope to give Cena some type of credibility, but it didn't matter too much anyway, because Kevin Nash would return, swoop in, and get himself in the feud with Punk setting up Alberto Del Rio's cash-in at that year's SummerSlam. The WWE title was swapping hands between three superstars, and it was pretty cool. What many thought would be a filler year for Cena awaiting the big match with The Rock turned out to be quite the opposite. Cena was actively involved in the most exciting storyline in wrestling with Punk. He regained his WWE title from Alberto Del Rio at the Night of Champions pay-per-view before losing it back a little over 2 weeks later. This is when The Miz and R-Truth became the Awesome Truth. They were similar to CM Punk, but despised in the process as superstars that felt like they were getting what they deserved. They interrupted the Hell in a Cell match and cost Cena his WWE title against Del Rio, with both of them getting arrested in the chaotic aftermath. Even when Cena got his chance at revenge against Alberto Del Rio at the Vengeance event, the Awesome Truth once again interfered. When authority figure in WWE, John Laurinaitis, allowed John Cena to pick any partner of his choice to face the disruptive Awesome Truth in a tag team match at Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden, he moved quickly and made an odd choice, but a seismically big one, in The Rock. It set the stage for The Rock's first WWE match since WrestleMania 20 in the same building in 2004. Fans rushed to buy tickets for Survivor Series at MSG, with the big attraction for The Rock's match being the first one he had done in 2,807 days. The same card saw CM Punk begin his historic 434-day reign as WWE Champion, but the main event was still Cena and The Rock defeating The Miz and R-Truth, with The Rock hitting the rock bottom after the match to make it clear they were far from friends. Can you see that? Yeah, we still have that WrestleMania match in the distance. WrestleMania season that year started before even 2012, and the hype was clear. It was all about Cena and The Rock. At this point, Cena was well out of the WWE title picture and had a few months to fill before The Rock and him would clash in Florida. But to get to the heavenly highs of Mania, he would have to go through hell with Kane, who he eventually beat in an ambulance match at the Elimination Chamber event. This was a rivalry that saw Zack Ryder play a supporting role, who was becoming one of the more popular mid-card talents, and also involved Eve Torres. John Cena and Zack Ryder were good buddies, with WWE utilizing Ryder's newfound popularity to prop up the top guy. The malicious Kane sent Zack Ryder flying off of the stage during a match in January on Raw and got him stretchered out of the arena. But before that, Kane began walking towards his girlfriend, cryptically threatening her. It was only after his good friend's girlfriend was in trouble that John Cena came out. What about when he got thrown off the stage, John? Oh, the next month after this, Cena saved her from another Kane attack. Eve Torres kissed him while Zack Ryder was looking on in a wheelchair while holding flowers. Woo, 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 you know it, broski. Time was near, WrestleMania 28, and there was no doubt that that year's Mania was among 2 or 3 of the biggest pay-per-views in pro wrestling history at the time. From the standpoint of pay-per-view buys, WrestleMania 28 set the record with a whopping 1.3 million buys. The Rock was riding high after a big hit at the box office with the recent Fast and the Furious film. Now here he was, back in a WWE ring where he first became famous, and the guy he was going to take on was the most famous guy in WWE since he left, John Cena. Still, there's something you may not know around this time that was going on with John Cena backstage. Possibility of finally turning him into a villain. The heel turn of John Cena. The Rock was a beloved legend and obviously someone who transcended the business, who was returning after years, so fans were not going to boo him. On the other hand, a babyface versus babyface match historically have a hard psychology to pull off, with a traditional good guy versus bad guy dynamic delivering for more classic main events. John Cena confirmed in an interview recently with Chris Van Vliet that everything was set up in place for him to turn heel after years in 2012. And there was music made for it. It was all different, a different outfit. Cena said he got word about the decision and went on and recorded a new theme song with just 48 hours notice. Cena being the workaholic that he was, Cena being who he is, always thinking ahead, was constantly in the direction of becoming the villain he would need to be. But the decision came down to one man, WWE boss Vince McMahon. For McMahon, this was his moment of getting cold feet. From a fan standpoint, it was a fairly straightforward call to turn a main eventer into a main event villain. But for McMahon, there was a lot of other factors at play. His biggest merchandise cash cow was still John Cena. His biggest good guy and inspiration for children would not be able to grant those Make-A-Wish requests and be that media conduit to bring people within the WWE circus. In McMahon's eyes, it was far too risky. Even if it would have meant Cena creating another hero, he could make a high merchandise seller and an inspiration for children disappear with this simple storyline. John Cena was ready, but it wasn't the right time and it simply wasn't meant to be, remaining a what if in the minds of many diehard fans. Even with the good guy versus good guy dynamic, Rock versus Cena was a massive box office hit. The Rock getting the win clean in the middle. I attended this match live and it was another Cena generation versus Attitude Era icon choose your own side crowd in an electrified Sun Life Stadium. Cena sat devastated the whole year, built to this mountaintop moment only for him to be sent back to the bottom. Children in attendance with their neon-colored t-shirts cried audibly, watching on as Cena sat dejected on the entranceway, looking on at the Rock celebration. It was billed as once in a lifetime, but we knew it was going to be twice in a lifetime. But before all that, the shocking Raw after WrestleMania left a massive, beastly surprise for John Cena, something we hadn't seen in 8 years. In the closing moments of Raw, with Cena trying to announce what his next move would be after the loss to The Rock, Brock Lesnar returned to a massive reaction, F5ing John Cena out of his pump-up Reeboks, clean to a feud with the biggest name in the business. He dominated in the UFC, and now he was back in WWE. Of course, Paul Heyman wasn't there initially, but it didn't matter. People didn't want to hear what Brock had to say, but see what he was going to do. And the Freak of Nature entered into a massive Extreme Rules main event against John Cena in Chicago, dominating him, but somehow, for some reason, Cena got the win in Lesnar's long-anticipated return to WWE on pay-per-view. It would take WWE 2 years to fix that mistake, but we'll get to it. Shouldn't this have been the launch of John Cena's downward spiral after losing the big match at Mania and now getting crushed under the horned hoof of Brock Lesnar? Yeah, but things took that weird turn, and John Cena had to face John Laurinaitis at the Over the Limit pay-per-view? What? Yeah, this headlined the pay-per-view above CM Punk versus Daniel Bryan for some reason, because we gotta have Cena in the top, and he's gotta take on Johnny Ace. Yeah, the authority figure character. Why? Can you imagine WWE had a guaranteed classic with Punk and Daniel Bryan, but still, Super Cena needs to be at the super top? It was kind of insane in retrospect, but Cena lost to Laurinaitis after interference from The Big Show. It all came to head in a steel cage match at No Way Out, where Cena's career was on the line if he lost. But if he won, Johnny Ace, John Laurinaitis, would be fired, and Cena successfully escaped the cage. Yeah, thankfully it didn't last much longer than that, and it was certainly a weird change of pace after Rock and Lesnar. He added another major accolade to his career, winning the Money in the Bank briefcase in the multi-man ladder affair, with his briefcase being exclusive for the WWE Championship. And he would unfortunately end up on the wrong side of Money in the Bank history. Monday Night Raw was approaching its 1000th episode. Cena would cash in his briefcase in advance to get his title shot. Unfortunately for him, The Big Show ensured that he became the first person ever to fail at cashing in a Money in the Bank briefcase to win a title. Yes, John Cena, the muscle-bound Boy Scout, had to tell everyone when he was going to do it, not make it a surprise. Him against CM Punk, though, certainly was an attraction on the 1000th episode of Monday Night Raw. It was also the same moment where The Rock came out to save him, only for CM Punk to hit a GTS and have one of the most shocking heel turns of the 2010s Up to that point, John Cena suffered an injury that kept him out for a few months. Just like in 2008, his in-ring return would be for a world title shot. This time against his old rival, CM Punk, with Ryback also getting involved at their Survivor Series in Indianapolis, Indiana. This match also launched the careers of Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Dean Ambrose as The Shield, making their debuts as a mercenary force to help CM Punk escape both Ryback and Cena with the title in the Prairie Land. Wonder where those guys are now. During this time, John Cena was accused of having an inappropriate workplace relationship in storyline, with AJ Lee and another authority figure, Vicky Guerrero, getting involved, and her boy toy Dolph Ziggler were out to prove the accusations against Cena were true. Ziggler was also the Money in the Bank briefcase holder at the time. Cena nearly won the briefcase when it was put on the line at the TLC pay-per-view, but he lost. I know. Dolph Ziggler won a big match against John Cena. I know. The next night on Monday Night Raw, Big E made his main roster debut. The end result of it was John Cena beating Ziggler in 2 consecutive matches, because there's no way he couldn't get the last laugh. Yeah, it had been 5 years since Cena won the Rumble, and he was looking to enter the rare club of superstars who've won it twice and set his path for another big WrestleMania. The Rock ended CM Punk's WWE Championship reign at an historic 434 days. That meant we were getting twice in a lifetime. The direction was obvious, and it kind of broke the once-in-a-lifetime advertising from the previous year. But guess what? It's John Cena versus The Rock in New York City at WrestleMania 29. It makes a lot of sense. Meanwhile, he would team up with Sheamus and Ryback against the invading trio of Hounds of Mercenary Justice, The Shield, in a losing effort. He also had another epic match on Raw against CM Punk to get him WrestleMania ready, while CM Punk was ready to dance with the dead man at Mania. This may be one of their best matches together. Totally seek it out. He overcame CM Punk to put an end to their incredible career-defining rivalry. With an unseasonably cold chill rolling over the crowd in the shadow of New York City, WrestleMania 29 was what many expected. John Cena getting his redemption moment against The Rock and becoming champion once again at the biggest show of the year, in the biggest match possible, in a torch-passing moment with The Rock. Despite all the criticism, there were 2 major points when it comes to WrestleMania 29's main event. For one, The Rock wrestled most of the match with torn muscles and tendons. This injury would affect the production of the multi-million-dollar film Hercules, which he was starring in at the time. Secondly, WrestleMania 29 crossed the million pay-per-view buy mark pretty easily, and it was down to the main event being the real selling point. With a 2-year-long story finally wrapped it up and dusted, it was time for Cena to move on from the Great One and do great things of his own without the shadow of the Brahma Bull hanging above him. He had a violent series of WWE Championship defenses against the monster Ryback, who wanted to be fed more and more matches, including a 3 Stages of Hell match on pay-per-view. And despite losing to Mark Henry at WrestleMania, Ryback really got to hang in there with Cena. Speaking of Mark Henry, what about that retirement speech that wasn't a retirement speech? Yes, an emotional John Cena at his side for what would be his send-off in that salmon-colored jacket, only for him to use it as an opportunity to give John Cena a world's strongest slam and set up a pay-per-view title challenge. Henry was past his Hall of Pain run, but as he described, "I got a lot more left in the tank. That's what I do." It was an epic moment. Now, Henry didn't get to defeat John Cena, but it certainly made for a compelling setup. Just how 2 years prior CM Punk made headlines, there was another person doing that in WWE's ranks, and they were coming up fast on John Cena: Daniel Bryan. Bryan was several years into his tenure, but he was deeply respected and an established veteran amongst his ranks, and had a lot of momentum and was easily regarded as one of the best in-ring performers, but was able to do the sports entertainment dance with Kane in Team Hell No. In the aftermath of that storyline, Daniel Bryan emerged as one of the hottest acts in WWE. and even Cena had to acknowledge his popularity by choosing him as his opponent at SummerSlam 2013. It was a truly epic match, one of John Cena's best pay-per-view main events against the technical wizard that was Daniel Bryan, where he lost clean as a whistle with that giant bazooka running knee, Triple H serving as the guest referee, only for Randy Orton, yes, the chosen authority figure superstar, to defeat Daniel Bryan. With Cena taking a hiatus due to a torn tricep, Daniel Bryan was slotted perfectly to take his spot as the #1 good guy in the company in his absence. Fans were ready for change. The timing worked out, and Daniel Bryan was the right guy. John Cena had a trend of going on a break and returning right to the world title picture. Even though he was set up for a 4 to 6 months absence with his injury, it meant he would return in early 2014. Of course, he ended up back in the ring by October. At the Hell in a Cell event, he defeated Alberto Del Rio to win another world championship. This time, WWE was done with the 2 world title concept and decided it was time to unify the titles once more. So Cena was booked to face Randy Orton, in a world title unification bout, with the World Heavyweight Championship and WWE Championship being hung above the ring. Surprisingly, it was Randy Orton who would walk out of this unified world title match as the sole world champion of WWE. Daniel Bryan was the star in the midst, waiting to go to war, and he had broken away from the Wyatt family and was set for something truly big around WrestleMania season. The spectacular Wyatts couldn't get Bryan under their spell, but yes, their spooky mist found a new target in the ultimate good guy, John Cena. Bray Wyatt was the embodiment of supernatural evil in WWE at the time, so who better to face the very real-life superhero in John Cena in the capital of everything voodoo that was New Orleans at WrestleMania 30. This was a perfect match, and it pitted Cena against an opponent who operated in a completely different way. Cena was the light, Wyatt was the darkness. Their WrestleMania match should have been where Bray Wyatt had his crowning moment at Cena's, benefit to build him up. But lol, Cena wins, strikes again. Yeah, get out your memes. The feud continued after WrestleMania, and it followed up the same playbook. Also, John Cena feuds saw him lost a major match and win the final one. Bray Wyatt got his win back against Cena after WrestleMania in a steel cage match, but it ended up in a losing the last match of the rivalry situation, a last man standing that ended with Bray Wyatt getting buried under arena equipment. He's literally burying people out here. Cena would have another reign as WWE World Champion, and it came at Money in the Bank after Daniel Bryan was forced to vacate the title. Now, this may seem like another lol, Cena wins title moment, and WWE, though, had a different plan. The title is being put on Cena in this situation to elevate someone and make a wrong from 2 years prior with the Beast, Brock Lesnar. By this point, it was clear that John Cena was coming near the end of his full-time in-ring career, and WWE bosses and brass at the time decided that maybe it was time to build a new successor to his role, Roman Reigns. It seemed to think that Brock Lesnar shockingly ended The Undertaker's WrestleMania streak just months earlier, so his aura was elevated to a true Cthulhu-like beast of the apocalypse. And who was set in his sights but John Cena and his world title? They were going to rectify the mistake of Lesnar's return match at Extreme Rules 2012 and do it at SummerSlam 2014. This is when the phrase "Welcome to Suplex City" entered the general wrestling fan lexicon as Brock Lesnar squashed John Cena, with children screaming audibly in the background behind the camera. It was the most one-sided loss of John Cena's career, one of the most dominating victories of Brock Lesnar's. Cena would invoke his rematch clause the next month, but could only scrape by with a DQ win after Money in the Bank winner Seth Rollins interfered. Cena spent the rest of the year flirting with that #1 contender spot. He attained it after beating up an up-and-comer by the name of Randy Orton in a Hell in a Cell match. While Lesnar was away from the game, Cena had another issue with the Authority. Yes, the evil Authority. He assembled his own team heading into Survivor Series with Dolph Ziggler, Big Show, Eric Rowan, and Ryback. Yeah, not exactly a dream team, we know, but that show was all about something else. The stakes of the match were kind of a must-see thing. A win for Team Cena stipulating the end of the Authority faction, which fans were not just booing, but trying to boo off of their televisions. Cena would be the only person with the power to bring them back. Now, you would think that Cena would get to have the closing moments of the big multi-man elimination tag team match, but no, it was Dolph Ziggler who was the sole survivor for Team Cena, and it saw the debut of that man called Sting, who got into it with Triple H. In December, Seth Rollins held Edge at the closest gunpoint of a steel chair, breaking his already surgically repaired neck. And Edge was nearly 4 years removed from retirement. Rollins, that evil, evil man with the remnants of the Authority and Big Show, got him in a compromised position. Edge was still fragile, so John Cena was forced to do the worst thing he could do. He had to reinstate the Authority. Seth Rollins was rewarded with a #1 contender spot for the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, despite already holding the Money in the Bank briefcase. This led to an instant classic triple threat match with Cena, Lesnar, and Rollins at the Royal Rumble, where they really stole the show. With the world title once again out of grasp of John Cena and his multicolored wristbands, he focused on a title that gave him an early career boost, the United States Championship. I know, what an interesting change of pace. John Cena had a mission to make the United States Championship the best and most impactful championship it had been in years. Up until that point, Cena had a few long reigns in his early tenure, but this was different, solely beginning to fade into the favor of a somewhat shorter title run with explosive matches. The reason behind this is probably because of the historically speaking good guys are hotter when they're chasing the top title than when they're actually holding it. But this was a US championship. It was different. It was a workhorse championship meant to propel other people to a level of WWE that he had been in quite some time. The United States Championship didn't have a true sense of prestige for several years. John Cena was out to give it that prestige. This would take him out of the WWE World title picture for the first time, really, since 2005, and it was truly effective. The United States Championship reign he had was a clear signal of maybe him winding down, but still him trying to do something that was purposeful. And he was going to make it count. The perception that John Cena began to change rapidly once he was no longer at the top. He didn't need to be a top guy to be seen as one of the best performers in the company, even though he was one of the best performers in the company the entire time. At this point, the Cena Sucks crowd really faded off. They started to hate on Roman Reigns for being the guy who was put on a pedestal. And respect and reverence for John Cena for what he had achieved for so many years began to become something kind of cool. Children that loved him were now teenagers or in their 20s. There was a different sense of respect for what John Cena was going to do. Not in the main event of WrestleMania in Silicon Valley, John Cena would play the role of Rocky, and Rusev would play the role of Drago. It was Rocky IV in California at WrestleMania for the United States Championship. Rusev may have came out in a tank, but he wasn't strong enough to beat old Big John Cena. Yeah, cry your tears there at ringside, Lana. It was John Cena bringing the United States Championship back home to the US of A. Cena's run with the United States Championship may have been one of the best in his career. He had an open challenge, seeing him face new, fresh, relevant talent coming up the ranks. We saw the debut of Sami Zayn, whose shoulder popped out during his entrance, but it was still a special performance. He still went on to have an incredible match with John Cena, by the way. Apart from that, Cena crossed paths with the likes of Neville, Zack Ryder, Bad News Barrett, and Cesaro, whom he had an incredible match, another banger I saw at the Rosemont Horizon in Chicago. This was John Cena seeing the hashtag Push Cesaro movement online and embracing the Swiss Superman with a truly career-making match. Earlier into this post-WrestleMania run, he defeated Rusev in a rematch before getting confronted by the reigning NXT champion, Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens is almost guaranteed to be a future Hall of Famer, but he got his start almost in a similar scenario to how John Cena got his start, a ruthless aggression call-out style match. The champion versus champion Elimination Chamber pay-per-view match saw Cena put over Owens clean. A guy from the black and gold NXT brand of Triple H beat one of McMahon's favorite golden boys. This can't happen. Yeah, that's how much John Cena was willing to give back to the business, which had given him so much. Oh, don't worry, John Cena still went on to beat him in the next 2 pay-per-views, but it was still a huge deal. Seth Rollins was the guy for WWE in 2015, and there was no disputing it. He carried the company during an otherwise challenging year, and one of the highlights was when he had a feud that summer against Jonathan Cena. Cena managed to defend his United States Championship against Seth Rollins in a match where his nose got completely busted with a flying knee blast. It set up a winner-take-all match for both the United States Championship and the WWE World Heavyweight title. The match at SummerSlam wasn't that bad until comedian Jon Stewart interfered, and that led to one of John Cena's best ever title reigns. Yeah, the same Jon Stewart who hosted The Daily Show on Comedy Central. It was one of the most awkward celebrity interferences of all time, but the outcome was the right one. Nobody was better than Seth Rollins that year, so giving him both titles was just another feather in his villainous cap. Cena would regain the United States Championship the next month at the Night of Champions pay-per-view, but it was only a transitional reign. In October, the Hell in a Cell came around, and surprise, his opponent was the returning Alberto Del Rio, who was fired the previous year for an altercation with an employee backstage. Yeah, that was a whole mess. Del Rio dethroned Cena, and although nobody really knew it at the time, Hell in a Cell 2015 would mark the official end of Cena's run as a full-time superstar. He could definitely look at specific day or consider it maybe the end of the real John Cena run at the top, but it wasn't his world title run, it wasn't his last major feud, but it was his last as a full-time star. He was done and ready to take the next step into Hollywood. It would have been hard for McMahon and WWE's upper brass to even attempt to convince him otherwise because he got a lot more value and money from John Cena. Near the end of every calendar year, it is always speculated what lies ahead for WWE's annual WrestleMania season in the early spring. The match everyone was talking about near the end of 2015 was the highly expected dream bout between John Cena and The Undertaker. In late 2015, WWE was set for one of the biggest WrestleManias of all time in Dallas, Texas. This mega match was reportedly, according to Brian Alvarez, the intended plan for the show of shows. With around 100,000 fans expected to attend and possibly breaking the WrestleMania 3 attendance record of 93,000 people, a number that is highly disputed, to create a card as big as possible, Cena vs. Taker was the ideal attraction for the Mania marquee. Unfortunately, a plague of injuries hit the WWE locker room in late 2015, and a lot of big names were going to miss that year's WrestleMania. It included Seth Rollins, Randy Orton, Cesaro, and even John Cena himself. Coming off of the U.S. title loss to Alberto Del Rio, the C-Nation captain was sidelined with an untimely shoulder injury that had a reported recovery window of around 8 months. But as you know, Cena doesn't follow those usual recovery timetables. Cena's injury caused a lot of reshuffling in the plans for that year's WrestleMania, and the shoulder injury led to a surgery, keeping him out a good chunk of the year. WWE had to bring in the son of the billionaire that was WWE's Prince, Shane McMahon, back for just the program with The Undertaker, and it led to a direct spike in ticket sales. Yet, this was simply a replacement showdown for the Deadman Big Match Johnny match that everyone was really expecting. For Cena, he would return at WrestleMania 32 in an in-ring segment with The Rock, helping him take out the Wyatt family. It was not what fans expected, but it's what they got, a brief physical combo of Cena teaming with a former foe to face a different former foe. Cena continued to be productive outside of the WWE, with a competition reality TV series, American Grit, filming 2 seasons, along with the allure of continued film roles. But in May of 2016, Cena returned to Monday Night Raw, proclaiming that he was aware of the changing of the guard in WWE, and that, quote, "The future must damn sure go through me." Not long after those provocative words came out of Cena's resilient mouth, he was soon face to face with a phenomenal challenge. AJ Styles was only 4 full months into his WWE run, and he was red hot. He debuted at the Royal Rumble in a world-shaking way. He was long seen as one of the top wrestling stars outside of WWE who ran other places like TNA and New Japan, and now he was face-to-face with the face that runs this place, WWE. He instantly became one of WWE bosses Vince McMahon's favorite go-to performers around this time, and was also seen as someone that should have been in WWE a decade prior. In just 4 months, he had one of the greatest debuts in WWE history, that feud against a bona fide legend in Chris Jericho, a marquee WrestleMania match, and 2 pay-per-view main events against the new face of WWE at the time, Roman Reigns. The hype was real. The timing couldn't have been better for these 2 franchise players to finally square off. Mr. WWE and John Cena versus Mr. TNA, AJ Styles, and it felt special and it over-delivered. For the first time in a decade, WWE was in a different position. They had established enough of a roster, and AJ Styles was someone who was picking up the slack with other people injured. And maybe they didn't need John Cena the same way they did before, so now having him was a real treat. Having him play a special attraction feature performer role made sense. And don't get us wrong, having Cena on the show is always good for metrics and moolah and ticket sales, but he was in a completely different stage of his career. The NXT talent developmental system for WWE was thriving, and they were signing world-class names on the regular. Not only that, there was an incredible group of young, hungry superstars. But overall, the quality of the roster was the best it had ever been, and it looked like it was only getting better. AJ Styles answered the call. It was a truly surreal moment. It appeared like they got hijacked by Luke Gallows and Carl Anderson of The Club, and it was a ruse to set up AJ Styles for a truly villainous heel turn. The rivalry between him and one of the many reasons why post-WWE WrestleMania 32 was truly an incredible time. And Cena versus Styles was a major reason for that. It began a complete shift in the way that John Cena was going to be featured, and he was now going to give back to the business in style, for lack of a better phrase. They would clash for the first time at the Money in the Bank event in a 4.5-star rated bout, with Styles getting the win over Cena thanks to the help of his club members Gallows and Anderson with their not-so-sweet interference. It seemed to be almost the normal course of a Cena feud: lose, then win. Cena managed to find truly great alliances with new upstarts Enzo and Cass on his side. They teamed up and beat Styles and the Good Brothers at the Battleground event that summer, setting up the stage for a SummerSlam rematch. This happened after the WWE draft in 2016, the event that saw WWE introduce proper brand splits once again. John Cena and AJ Styles were drafted to SmackDown, while Gallows and Anderson, Styles' thugs, were drafted over to Raw. Their horns were still entangled, with Cena wanting to avenge a previous loss to Del Rio to charge his batteries to avenge another loss to P1 Styles. It meant that at SummerSlam, it was going to be one-on-one with no funny business. Yeah, it seemed like Cena was probably going to get that win back. That was not the case at all. Cena and Styles topped their previous match with another 4.5-star classic that truly went the distance and stole the night at SummerSlam at the Barclays in Brooklyn, New York. They took each other to the limit. Another reminder of the Cena can't wrestle accusations were completely invalid. Cena was toe-to-toe with one of the best in-ring performers in the world, and reminding you that, yeah, he's Big Match Johnny. But that was not the most shocking part, as Styles won clean. Yes, the biggest win of his entire career. It was one of those matches where you knew it was going to be awesome before the bell even rang, and it was indeed awesome. A little after, AJ Styles also captured the WWE Championship. But when John Cena returned a month later on SmackDown, he inserted himself into the WWE Championship picture that was occupied by AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose from The Shield, now a solo superstar. Cena being Cena meant that he had a claim to the WWE Championship just based on name value alone, and at the end of the year, he returned to challenge for the title at the Royal Rumble. Styles successfully defended the title against the likes of Baron Corbin and Dolph Ziggler, and this set up a trilogy closing match, now with higher stakes and a prize for the winner. This time, the title was on the line. Cena was a 15-time world champion at this stage in his career, and he hadn't held gold in over 2 years. It was his attempt at tying Ric Flair's illustrious 16-time world championship record, something that nobody else in the wrestling business had achieved. In the Alamo Dome in Texas, the same arena where Shawn Michaels regained the WWE Championship in 1997, Cena and Styles would go to war for the biggest prize in the WWE. It was another masterclass performance. Maybe the best match of the trilogy is the one that closed it out. And they crafted their match in such a very unique way where they barely, if ever, if we can recall, exited the ring. It was all between the ropes and the turnbuckles. For a quarter of an hour, both men were in the ring and everyone was on their feet. Unlike their last 2 matches, the outcome was a different one this time, with a furious pace back and forth of lots of counters for 24 minutes. Even in the closing moments, a brilliant exchange. Cena's attitude adjustment was wonderfully countered into a chest-slamming Styles clash, only for Cena to snuff out Styles attempting an off-the-rope flying forearm into a thrilling consecutive 2-in-a-row AA slams to make history. The message was sent loud and clear. History at the Royal Rumble, said Mauro Ranallo on the call. That was one of the greatest things I have ever seen, praised JBL at the commentary desk. John Cena beat AJ Styles and became a 16-time world champion. He was embraced by everybody in the arena, and it didn't matter or not if it was at WrestleMania, it may as well been WrestleMania. There was always an argument that such a big moment maybe needed to happen on a Mania show, but when a match is that good, it doesn't always matter when it happens, it's how it happens and how special it was. But don't leave your brightly colored wristbands on for too long, John Cena fans. It wasn't meant to be a long run with the title. Actually, more of a transitional champion because his status at WWE at the time was truly just being a featured player. He was kind of a side character in Total Divas, the reality show that was coming up at the time. He had a bigger spin-off with Total Bellas and was a part of that continuing reality show American Grit. His priority was to build his momentum and enter Hollywood in a bigger way. So the timing of his 16th world title was kind of not matching up maybe the way people would have wanted if they want him there all the time. Just 2 weeks after the Rumble, he defended the WWE title inside the arduous Elimination Chamber, with Bray Wyatt taking him out, ensuring there would be a new WWE champion crowned that night. Bray Wyatt would go on to manipulate himself into a world championship title reign, and John Cena continued to be the valiant hero, also a selfless one, who would take the pin in a title rematch that also involved AJ Styles in a triple threat scenario. John Cena, almost like a proud mentor, out of character in the match, reportedly and allegedly whispered, "You're a proper champion now," to Bray Wyatt while he was getting pinned. John Cena loves professional wrestling. SmackDown Live was really riding high, and we mentioned the different direction that Cena's career was going in quite a few times. Even Mr. McMahon himself seemed to want to get into that direction. He always had the desire to make WWE mainstream again and did everything he could to provide that mainstream relevance, especially at WrestleMania. Cena's role at WrestleMania 33 in Orlando was a special attraction match built on a real-life romance, power couples playing off casual fans who've joined WWE's in-ring soap opera through the conduit of reality television. Cena had a well-documented relationship with Nikki Bella, one of the most popular wrestlers in the world, and someone who certainly brought in those casual fans we mentioned. The power couple was about to meet their match. Yes, they weren't going to be in the main event, they were going to be in something different. Something that was meant to see the It couple versus the other power couple of WWE, The Miz and Maurice. The Miz was another star who knew he had new life in 2016, becoming one of the most memorable Intercontinental champions of all time. Maurice was a large part of his success, and honestly was an entertaining part of it. Their opposition to Cena and Nikki was entertaining and featured several different sketches where they did impressions of their match opponents for WrestleMania in the lead up to the big show. It was a very, very middle card match, but certainly a unique one. Cena and Bella would win decisively in a match that didn't need to last as long as it did. To get to the real meaning of it all, John Cena getting down on bended knee proposing to Nikki Bella, as we all expected, in the ring at WrestleMania. Yes, this was very predictable, but I know many a total diva girly out there who lost their mind watching this. If 2016 was one of the best years of WWE in the PG era, whatever you want to call it, 2017 may have been one of the weaker ones. The quality of WWE stories across the board took good, and Jinder Mahal went from being an enhancement talent to a WWE champion in 6 weeks. A shocking move, but one that didn't sustain the electricity. Cena, though, returned to the fold and picked up a feud against Rusev, his foe from a few years earlier. But the boring old USA versus Russia, country versus country trope didn't justify an underwhelming flag match at the Battleground event. The anti-American villain, the patriotic storylines, it just felt outdated. He then picked up a feud against the Money in the Bank briefcase holder, Baron Corbin, a young upstart who was certainly raging up the card and costing him his cash-in against Jinder Mahal. Cena also, once again, wanted to break that world title record and pursue the champion at the time, Jinder Mahal, at SummerSlam. And to do that, he would have to get through another rising star, one of the biggest names to join WWE around this time, Shinsuke Nakamura. This was a really great match until Nakamura slammed Cena right on his head. It was a scary moment there. Nakamura wasn't exactly a newbie to the wrestling business, but within the context of WWE's main roster, he was only a few months on the main scene with John Cena there. And it was exciting to see Cena once again against another established name from Japan with Nakamura. Cena once again continued his mission to give back to the business by putting Nakamura over clean, bowing to him in respect. After the match, though, Mr. Disrespect, Baron Corbin, targeted Cena to set up their SummerSlam clash. Cena's SummerSlam record is actually quite abysmal. He's 5-10, and 6 of those losses came between 2011 and 2016. And it seems like, allegedly, maybe his political power was to get a big SummerSlam win, blah, 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 paid for his sins in the next 6 years. He wasn't going to lose to Baron Corbin, though Cena had one of his most forgettable SummerSlam matches with him, and he was out of there almost as quickly as he came in. Cena was still at a crossroads. Was he still the face that ran the place? Was he still one of the top names in the business? It didn't seem like he was being positioned as that, but still being treated as a featured player, a real attraction who could move tickets. So now he had to face the other guy who was moving the needle for WWE, Roman Reigns. A match of this caliber sounds like it would be something on a WrestleMania, or maybe even a Royal Rumble, but no, it was actually featured on a B-tier pay-per-view. Wasn't even the main event. Yeah, it got to be something on No Mercy in 2017. The promo battles to get there, though, would see a leveled up generation versus generation resentfulness. Reigns, in a contract signing segment, called out Cena, adding some internet wrestling jargon to the exchange, proclaiming him a, quote, part-time fake-ass who buries young talent to stay on top. Cena snapped back, saying it took you 5.5 years to cut a half-decent promo, but now I'm about to dress you down to size. Dressing down Reigns even further, he brought up the idea of the shallow, often repeated notion that Cena is some kind of backstage politicker, when Cena reminded him, the fans are the ones who hold the keys to the kingdom, big dog. Cena then gravitated himself in humility, bringing up the realistic perspective that he is out of the main title picture. He hasn't main evented a WrestleMania in some years, and he became, quote, a beacon of opportunity when he held the US Championship to help raise the stock of younger superstars, which is true. Cena then fully yanked pants down on Reigns proverbially by saying, I'm still here because you can't do your job. It was one of the best microphone moments of the year, maybe one of the single best promos that Cena gave at that stage of his career, and it threw a bunch of gasoline on Cena versus Reigns. While Cena may have cooked Roman Reigns on the microphone, getting to the match at No Mercy would be a different story. Cena would continue to do honors by the business. In a 4 1/4 star match, he would lose to Roman Reigns. A proverbial passing of the torch is what it felt like, especially based on his post-match comments on the WWE Network. It was another turning point that made fans realize that despite all of the criticism lobbed at Cena, he was always going to be on game on the mic and on game for a big match, and he didn't lack the confidence to deliver what was right for the wrestling business in the long term. It also instantly inserted the narrative in the eyes of some fans of just how little Roman Reigns felt like he deserved that spot at the top. The match between Cena and Reigns was a particularly strong one, but not stronger than stuff he had in 2016, and Cena was teasing retirement, but he wasn't done. Cena would make a brief cameo as a part of the Raw vs. SmackDown Survivor Series elimination match, getting eliminated by the man he would induct into the WWE Hall of Fame, someone who's synonymous with his big breakout moment, Kurt Angle. Yeah, he was not done. John Cena would have a somewhat forgettable match with Elias on Monday Night Raw in Chicago on Christmas Day. He'd be featured on the WWE Holiday Live Event Tour taking on Roman Reigns, but it was all about the Royal Rumble in January 2018. There was an exciting moment where he stood alongside Rey Mysterio and Randy Orton, his ruthless aggression brethren, to represent the old guard facing the new guard in the form of Finn Balor, Roman Reigns, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Cena found himself in both World Championship pictures on both brands within just 2 weeks. He was a part of the 2018 Elimination Chamber match, once again trying to project himself into the world title picture with the looming WrestleMania, determined to once again face Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. And after he didn't succeed there, he went to SmackDown and joined the Six-Pack Challenge at Fastlane for the WWE title, constantly pursuing and gripping at a chance to have, once again, WrestleMania immortality. And if you want to be immortal at WrestleMania, you gotta call out the guy who is WrestleMania, The Undertaker. Acting like his career depended on it, John Cena demanded this match, and it was a weird build-up. For years, fans wanted to see this WrestleMania match, but in 2018 just may have not been the right time. The Undertaker seemed to be retired, leaving his gear in the ring after losing to that big dog of the day, Roman Reigns, at the conclusion of WrestleMania 33 the previous year. Was Taker's Mania magic gone? His physical wear and tear were quite clear, and it seemed like the sun may have set on the dead man having those banger matches on the big stage. It also felt like maybe his legacy was closed there, and having an informal retirement ceremony made everyone think that, only to have him come back once more and rise from the dead. The build to this match stayed weird because the match was never officially advertised in advance, though we knew it was going to happen. Cena came to WrestleMania 34 in New Orleans as a spectator, watching from the seats, just eating popcorn, drinking a beer next to the fans. And after that, it just seemed like you weren't going to have John Cena having a match, and Elias is going to troll him, and John Cena finally got his match against The Undertaker. The beer he consumed was probably why he lost the match in 3 minutes. That's right, 3 minutes. That's all we got of Undertaker and John Cena. I attended this one live, and the person who was with me said it was just The Undertaker playing the hits. And he played the hits, and it was cool, but 3 minutes? This is Cena versus Undertaker. Yeah, John Cena did the business. He ate the pin, arms crossed, all that good stuff. But wasn't this supposed to be more? Building to those big expectations and maybe fans not feeling them, there was also issues outside of the ring, highlighted by his separation from Nikki Bella. Cena would face his old rival Triple H for the last time in a big money bout in Saudi Arabia, beating him in what was basically just a special attraction match with little substance or story, though the match was quite the banger and something he needed after maybe people expected more of Cena versus Undertaker not too long before that. Cena continued his feature player duties, teaming up with Bobby Lashley in a one-off at Super Showdown in a stadium event in Australia, picking up the win before going off into the sunset for the rest of the year. Cena was supposed to be a part of the WWE World Cup tournament in November in Saudi Arabia, but because of the negative press surrounding the event in Saudi Arabia and other geopolitical issues, he decided it would be a smarter career move to distance himself and pulled out of it. His Hollywood career picked up in a big way in 2017. It was clear that he was going to become even more of a part-time performer for WWE and appear fewer and farther between. In 2017 alone, he was in the sequel movie Daddy's Home 2 with Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell. biggest claim to fame that year wasn't a live-action movie, but the acclaimed animated feature Ferdinand, where he voiced the lead character, Ferdinand the Bull. It was even nominated for Best Animated Feature at the Oscars. His movie The Wall didn't fare that well, but he seemed to be following a different trajectory than The Rock. Rock branched out a little bit before claiming limited roles and one specific type of character every time, but Cena was doing dramas, animated films, young adult comedies, blockbuster franchises, and was really going all over the place. Cena wasn't a Batista level of diversity in his movie roles because he seemed to specialize more in comedies, but was still getting himself out there. 2018 continued to see his IMDb portfolio expand in the teen sex comedy Blockers and the Transformers spin-off Bumblebee. But it continued to say that he was going to be more of a movie star in the eyes of some than a pro wrestling superstar. Back in the world of WWE, Cena wanted to make his appearances count. So when he returned at the end of 2018, he made sure it was to endorse the hottest superstar in all of wrestling at the time, the man, Becky Lynch. Nobody, regardless of gender, was as hot as Becky Lynch was then, in the midst of her iconic run to the top of the card. He teamed up with her for a one-off match on SmackDown to beat Andrade and Zelina Vega. He even appeared on Monday Night Raw one week to team up with Seth Rollins and Finn Balor, and the second week in a fatal four-way match to determine Brock Lesnar's Universal Championship opponent at the Royal Rumble. And for all you people still somehow trying to claim that John Cena just buries young talent, he took the pinfall and endorsed Finn Balor. The number of matches he had per year began to shrink at a rapid rate because he simply didn't wrestle for the remainder of 2019, beyond those 2 matches on Raw. He returned as the Doctor of Thugonomics in a surprise appearance at WrestleMania 35 to take out Elias for the second year in a row. WrestleMania 35 was all about Seth Rollins slaying the Beast, Kofi Mania, with Daniel Bryan and Kofi Kingston delivering an all-time classic, and Becky Lynch reaching the pinnacle of professional wrestling. But there was something else on that show that really needed John Cena. Everyone wanted to see Kurt Angle's farewell match be against John Cena, but they got Baron Corbin instead, who in hindsight appears to have been set up to really not carry on that momentum. Not to mention Batista also had his retirement match that night too. He only appeared one more time that year to have a rap battle on the Raw reunion, and in 2020 he was slated for a WrestleMania program against The Fiend Bray Wyatt, who was receiving some really over-the-top production but questionable booking. Wyatt was a dominant Universal Champion, and Goldberg just beat him in a few minutes clean? Where was all that momentum? At least WWE had plans for Wyatt at WrestleMania, and it looked like we were finally going to have a chance to avenge that loss from 6 years earlier, and John Cena would do the honors once again. It actually seemed like Cena was going to announce his retirement before The Fiend show up. Then the COVID-19 pandemic hit, leading to a worldwide lockdown. WWE, somehow, we have no idea, made it happen that the government of Florida deemed them an essential service, which first led to them being moved to the Performance Center with no fans. Cena, Wyatt, and everyone got to work to figure out how to make their match have the most of this situation. With no fans present, WWE had the freedom for the first time to really experiment with the way they have done wrestling, leading to cinematic matches that we hadn't seen and maybe may not see again. Cena told Chris Van Vliet in an interview in 2024 he was originally going to have a traditional match with Bray Wyatt. But after the pandemic kicked in, he was asked if he would have a Firefly Funhouse match. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically a demented, otherworldly situation created in these backstage segments with Bray Wyatt's over-the-top character who borders between being Bray and The Fiend, and it's just out there. His first response was to ask what on earth that even was. It instantly became clear to entertain the crowd over 2 days, no audience on a double-night WrestleMania, everyone had to get very creative. They decided to make it a bit of a trip, a meta trip of John Cena's career and life, using things available within the WWE warehouse and widespread IP. We got a masterclass of making references to everything John Cena had been around, not been around, or fans wanted him to be. Cena revealed he wrote the match from start to finish with the inputs of Bray and the creative team, and we got to see a crazy time warp of a match, quote unquote. It's hard to even call it a match. It was cinema, it was something else, it was surreal, it was twisted, a trip down memory lane for John, even showing what-if moments as if he turned heel and joined the NWO. Bray Wyatt played his role to perfection, being a master puppet of mind games who took Cena through some kind of alternate reality. Both the Graveyard match between AJ Styles and The Undertaker and the Firefly Funhouse matches were truly masterpieces in a challenging time for WWE. And the match itself ended with Cena just outright disappearing. So we guess Bray Wyatt won and got his revenge, and now we literally could not see John Cena. It's not often that you see characters deconstructed on that level. It really happened in the past, and it doesn't happen now. Cena had one movie credit in 2020 for obvious reasons, voicing the polar bear Yoshi in the Robert Downey Jr.-led Doolittle movie. 2021, though, was a massive year for Cena's Hollywood career. He was cast as the main villain in F9, the 9th installment in the Fast and the Furious franchise, one of the biggest in the world, which was among the top 5 highest-grossing movies in the global box office that year. He was one of the most loved characters in the 2021 reboot of Suicide Squad, playing the Peacemaker. It was one of his most respected performances in a film to date, and everyone recognized it. Peacemaker became his own popular character, getting an HBO Max spin-off series, which is one of the best shows on that streaming service. If you haven't seen it, go see it now. Yes, that's right, he dominated the DC universe and the WWE universe. Take that, Superman! In 2021, Cena would unfortunately miss his first WrestleMania since 2004. If you count that he had a Sunday Night Heat taping in WrestleMania 19, then it goes back to 2003. During the peak of the pandemic in 2021, Cena was in Canada filming Peacemaker, and his quarantine requirements meant that WWE couldn't have him for a return, as that just wasn't possible. But by the summer of 2021, with live fans back in attendance, WWE back in front of the most precious element they have, the fans, so did John Cena return. After Roman Reigns defeated Edge in the main event of Money in the Bank, the first premium live event with crowds back in nearly a year and a half, here comes John Cena out of nowhere. It seemed like by that point, the perception of Cena in the WWE fans' eyes had completely changed. It was 6 years removed from when he started getting phased out and maybe not being in the top tier of the program. To have John Cena come back around was a real bonus. Not only that, but he was set to make a run back at Roman Reigns, a blockbuster SummerSlam match. That entire summer was dubbed the Summer of Cena, and he drew big, selling out arenas across the country. There was a massive difference between Roman Reigns of 2017 and this Roman Reigns of 2021. He wasn't facing a big dog anymore. John Cena was gonna face the Tribal Chief. Reigns had finally unlocked a door to allow him to have his full potential, and everybody knew that WWE was going in the right direction and kind of righting wrongs from the past with Reigns. It was obvious the feud they had in 2017 maybe not have been the real torch-passing moment it needed to be. The circumstances were different. WWE would scratch that 4-year-old itch, and the feud between Cena and Roman led to an outstanding match at SummerSlam 2021, with Cena's loss setting up Brock Lesnar's return at the end of the event in Nevada. Once again, off into the shadows, Cena would return to WWE for his 20th anniversary special, which was an episode of Raw completely dedicated to him and his outstanding, undeniable legacy. It looked like it was going to be the first year in an entire decade where he didn't wrestle a single match at all. That was about to change. He managed to secure himself a tag team match alongside his old rival Kevin Owens, helping him beat Roman Reigns and Sami Zayn of the Bloodline to close out 2022. He received the distinction of becoming the cover star of WWE 2K23, its big video game, and kept himself busy in Hollywood throughout the year. On the big screen, he returned for the 10th installment of the Fast and the Furious franchise, made a cameo in the mega hit Barbie, stayed in the action comedy game alongside Allison Brie, had a big voice role in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles animated film, co-starred in another action picture with Jackie freaking Chan, and was part of the sequel for the Vacation Friends movies as well. Safe to say, he was a busy guy in the movies. After years of taking the mantle of responsibility for WWE, he was now fully in the thick of his run as a movie star. He returned for a WrestleMania program against Vince McMahon's favorite of the year, Austin Theory, who was the United States champion at the time, a title that John Cena's name was certainly connected to. It would have been an exciting old generation versus new generation match, but that's not exactly how it played down. Cena not only cooked the young Austin Theory on the microphone to the point of no return, but he also revealed that he told Theory the exact same thing personally first. For whatever reason, Cena went on to have one of his matches that people don't remember fondly at WrestleMania 39. Usually beating a legend of that caliber would lead to something big, but Austin Theory's win in this circumstance wasn't the thing that would propel him to the next level. You would think with all the films we listed out of John Cena's around this time, he would have had no time whatsoever for WWE. And that was the case, but the SAG-AFTRA Actors Union strike took place in the summer of 2023, giving John Cena some time to spare, and his time was putting those Reeboks and wristbands back on. The jorts are here, let's get back in the ring. Being the man he is, he got to work right away and was announced for a run in September and October. He used the opportunity to elevate WWE's hottest stars around this time, LA Knight. After being a special guest referee at the Payback Premium Live event between LA Knight and The Miz, Cena looked like he was set to team up with AJ Styles to face Jimmy Uso and Solo Sikoa of the Bloodline. AJ Styles was taken out and LA Knight took his spot, planting the seeds for their WrestleMania 40 match. Yeah, AJ Styles and LA Knight did not like each other. At the Fastlane event, Cena and LA Knight defeated Solo and Jimmy, and the following SmackDown, Cena endorsed LA as the next contender for Roman Reigns' undisputed Universal Championship. Meanwhile, Cena pointed out that he hadn't won a singles match in 5 years, setting up an open challenge that was answered by Solo Sikoa. The match would go down at Crown Jewel in Saudi Arabia, and in shocking fashion, because it was the first time since Brock Lesnar decimated Cena at SummerSlam 2014, Cena got manhandled and throat spiked into oblivion. Solo beat Cena within 10 Samoan spikes of his life, and WWE did a whole lot to capitalize on this later in 2024? Not exactly, but Solo would get a level up from that moment for sure. You can't have a WrestleMania 40 without someone like John Cena, and the part he played was significant in the main event on night 2, helping Cody Rhodes against Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. At least his appearance made some sense, unlike the random one by The Undertaker, though that one was still pretty cool. To fulfill his I will wrestle every year quota, John Cena teamed up with the Awesome Truth on the Raw after WrestleMania to topple the Judgment Day in 6-man tag team action. It was Money in the Bank 2024 that led to an announcement that would shock the wrestling world. The previous year, his Money in the Bank appearance was solely meant to tease a future WrestleMania in Wembley in London. And in 2024, he announced his retirement from WWE after 22 years. Thankfully, he wasn't retiring on the spot. He announced that 2025 would be the end of his storied in-ring wrestling career. And that meant that the Royal Rumble would be his last, the Elimination Chamber would be his last, the WrestleMania of 2025 would be his last hurrah on the grandest stage of them all. And with the slogan, "The last time is now," he went on to reveal his plans to work with WWE throughout 2025 with his farewell tour coming to a close at the end of the calendar year. It's a bittersweet feeling for anyone who grew up watching him. For fans post-2000, he's your Hulk Hogan, he's your Austin, he's your Rock. He was the face of WWE for so long and captured multiple generations of fans, and is, in a sense, a true WWE megastar. Maybe in the eyes of some, the last one. Whether you loved or hated Cena, you were never going to be apathetic towards him. He elicited a response because people care about John Cena. It's great to see the overall perception of John evolve over the years, from being an up-and-coming rookie to trying to make a name for himself, to being the hardest worker in the room, to the face of the entire industry, to the veteran, to the legend who everybody is happy to see. He gets unanimously positive responses every time he's out in the ring right now. And what we're looking at in 2025 is exactly what John Cena said: many unforgettable last moments.
He certainly lived up to that, and more than that. And when he turned heel for the first time in his career at Elimination Chamber 2025 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, he certainly created something you won't forget about. Triple H revealed on the High Performance podcast that his logic behind this creative decision with the heel turn was simple. Cena could go out and do his greatest hits in front of a receptive audience, but considering that this would be his last run ever, it also meant that it was the only opportunity WWE would ever have to get him in a bad guy role, something he had not done for a very, very long time. We can get into the whole debate about how WWE could have done it maybe better or this or that, but, throw the tweezers aside. Despite all the inconsistencies, the lack of The Rock's appearances, and all of it, we got to witness Cena become the first and only 17-time world champion in wrestling history. Cena being the one to end Cody Rhodes' year-long reign as the fighting undisputed WWE champion adds a lot more spice to what's looking to be an exciting final run.
It's crazy to think that we've come this far, only briefly acknowledging the work he has done, the meaningful work he has done with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. In 2022, he set the Guinness World Record for the most wishes granted, and that number is 650 meaningful moments for children in dire need. When he hit his 500th wish in 2015, Cena said that he was willing to drop anything and everything to grant a wish because it was the coolest thing. Just think about it. Since the Make-A-Wish Foundation was created 25 years ago, there hasn't been a single celebrity or athlete or anyone that is more requested than John Cena.
Many of the die-hard fans may have mocked WWE's emphasis on keeping John Cena in maybe a vanilla role that is safe until 2025.
And sure, there would have been a creative gain from it, but wouldn't it have been short-term? What would that have meant to the number of children who've seen John Cena inspire them with his truly ideal statement, "Never give up"? It puts a lot into perspective. Imagine Misha, the ironclad teenager who has dealt with serious health issues, who fled Ukraine in 2022 because of the war there, and John Cena was his hero, turning into a villain. It wouldn't have meant the same to Misha. For some context, Misha's mother couldn't even convey to her son why they were leaving her home country. So she told him they were going to find a quest to see John Cena. And when they were in the Netherlands, Cena heard about the story, and the circumstances allied for him to make this a reality. Imagine a 7-year-old child with a severe illness getting their heart broken by a man who gives them the strength to fight on. It just isn't the act he puts on. It isn't the man he needs to be. Sure, John Cena is a human and he's going to be a professional, but his character is something that is truly prolific in everything he does. But by most accounts of him outside of the cameras that have painted him as this or that, he's an upstanding man who respects everybody he works with and the people who come to see him do what he does. You really can't ask for a better representative of the professional wrestling craft than John Cena, so it's easy to see why he's been on top for so long.
It took WWE maybe finally having the proper successor to John Cena in the valiant Cody Rhodes for them to finally decide to turn Cena to the true dark side and make him a bad guy.
To address his tenure, the fact that he was able to pull off a decade at the top is insane. It's unheard of. From television to pay-per-view to live events to numerous media occasions and the charitable efforts we've already mentioned, he's raised the bar for what it is to be the top guy in this industry. We're not going to paint a picture of everything about his run as a perfect one. And that's because he's beloved by everybody now. Even the people that booed him years ago, like me, now love themselves some John Cena. But we can paint a picture of a kid from Massachusetts who's gone day in and day out, being the first one there and the last one to leave, knowing he had to put in the most work to make it the most meaningful thing he could. The man who chose to sleep in a car, who chose to make his life harder and ended up being exactly what he was destined to be. His story, in and out of the ring, is a relatable one to somebody somewhere, even if it isn't you. And everything about his character in and out of the ring made him a champion that's far greater. The story will conclude in 2025, and it's going to be one for the ages. Many firsts and many lasts. Last time is now. 2025 is likely going to be the end of us fully acknowledging John Cena as the greatest to ever do it. Thank you for watching. Let us know what you thought of this massive video project in the comments below.